Hey, everybody, this is Ryan Julison. If we can get everyone to mute their phones or their connections, please. Thank you. This is Ryan again. Before we get started, just want to make sure everybody has been given permission to record and is all set. If you have any issues, send a message. Thank you.
Y'all turn your phones down. Make sure the mute is off. Is everyone there?
Yeah, Stanley, this is Ryan. Everybody's here.
Okay.
Yours is
You
showing
ready
up
for it?
sideways, just FYI.
You said what?
It's sideways.
Okay, let me turn it around.
Thanks.
I'm not quite an expert in Zoom. I'm getting there though. Let's see. Is that good?
We can only see two of you. Is your phone locked? Like the screen locked for it to flip?
Hold on, let me try. Maybe it is. It is. That's why. All right. Apparently we have a Zoom expert, right?
After all these.
I learned something new. There we go. Yeah, it was sideways on my screen, but the screen apparently to you guys wasn't sideways. Thanks, Alex.
No problem. Yeah, we can see you.
Can you see us better now? Do you see us sideways now?
No, it's perfect, Stanley.
Okay. All right, we're gonna try to, we're probably violating all kind of rules, but we're gonna try to get us. We've been closer to this before, so. All right. You ready for us now?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. I want to thank everyone for attending our press conference. I want to introduce myself. I'm Stanley Jackson, managing partner of the Cochran Firm here in Cleveland. Next to me is Emmanuel Franklin, the father of Desmond Franklin. And on either side are his brothers and sisters, just a few of them. We want to discuss what took place with the grand jury. We're very disappointed in the outcome of the grand jury. Although as an attorney, I respect the process of the grand jury, we do not agree with the findings of the grand jury. We believe that there was evidence that was not presented correctly, and there was evidence that was not presented at that grand jury that would have assisted the grand jury in making a decision to charge Jose Garcia with murder. We are very concerned about that. We believe that that is probably the reason that Jose Garcia was not charged. This family is very disappointed. They lost their loved one. We lost a member of our community on April 9th. I want Mr. Franklin to talk a little bit about, he's going to introduce himself. He's going to talk a little bit about his family and about what they're feeling right now.
Thank you all for joining us today. I just want to say that we're so overwhelmed with pain and hurt from the decision of the jury. Desmond was just 22 years old, a family of 4, and it's just so sad that his kids would not see him anymore. He was a very well-loved young man, and it's just so sad that we had to lose him in that way by someone who felt that they had the power to do so. I want y'all to know that Desmond was a very good young man, despite of what people are saying about him. He was funny, he was loving, and he really cared a lot for his children. And his brothers and sisters that sit here with me right now have been so emotional and so distraught that it just feels like a boulder is on my shoulder because we haven't got justice for the murder of my son. He is still free, and Desmond did not deserve that. I mean, I'm just lost of words with this outcome. I try my best to keep my head up and keep my son's memory alive, but it's hard day and night. Some nights I can't sleep because I miss him so much. His family miss him, his children miss him. And he should still be here, excuse me, he should still be here with us. But at the hands of Jose Garcia on April the 9th was just horrifying because it didn't have to happen.
So what I want you guys to understand, that we at the Cochran Firm do a thorough investigation when we get these cases. It's an honor to be able to represent such a beautiful family. And so in this particular instance, our investigation, which we can confirm and was confirmed by the sources that it, through the city, not the county, but through the BCI, that also did an investigation, that these 5 facts we know for certain. Desmond Franklin did not fire a shot. Desmond Franklin did not brandish a gun. Desmond Franklin's passenger in that vehicle did not brandish or show a gun. There were no shots fired from Desmond Franklin's vehicle towards Officer Jose Garcia. There was a plethora of video, at least 4 different angles, that shows Desmond Franklin's car passing Jose Garcia. There are 4 videos on 4 different angles that show clearly that Jose Garcia is firing into Desmond Franklin's car. In that shooting, Jose Garcia shot 5 times at Desmond Franklin and his passenger. Not once did Desmond Franklin or the passenger return fire. Not once in any of those videos do you see that Desmond Franklin has brandished, or do you see a gun in view in his car. What you do see is you can see Jose Garcia brandishing the gun, and you can also see him firing the gun. You can also see the spark, a flash, in those videos from the gun. At some point, you have to say to yourself, with all those things being a factor, how does Jose Garcia walk away without being charged with murder, without being charged with assault, without being charged with felonious assault, without being charged with, improper discharge of a firearm? There are a plethora of things that he could have been charged with. And apparently, this grand jury, for some odd reason, did not find a true bill on any of those things. It is absolutely appalling to us. It is beyond reason. It is beyond common sense to even think that is possible. And at this point, this family, as well as the Cochran Firm Cleveland and Cochran Firm nationally, are continuing our investigation. We knew that this was going to be just the first step in our pursuit for justice for this family. We have made that step. We have given information, we have shared information, we've gone through the grand jury process. We are on to the next step. The next step will be, we will continue to investigate, but we will look at other avenues for this family to get justice. And those avenues will include potential lawsuit, civil suit, and will include potential asking of the Department of Justice to investigate this. When we're ready to do that, we'll let you guys know. At this moment, we'll take any questions that you may have for myself or this family.
Stanley, did the grand jury ever get to hear from the passenger in the car that day with Mr. Franklin?
Yes, the grand jury did hear from him, at least on one of the days that they convened. We know that they convened at least 3 days.
You
And
mentioned
to further answer your question, we know for certain that he said that there was never a moment where he or Desmond Franklin brandished a gun. He even states that as he was riding past Jose Garcia, he didn't even realize he was there. And his next statement was that all he heard was shooting, hearing a gun.
You mentioned possibility of evidence either misrepresented to the grand jury or not presented at all. What is that evidence specifically?
Specifically, there were, well, you know, the grand jury proceeding is secret. So there's only speculation on what we do know and what we don't know. We do know the facts that I presented to you. Number one, the passenger who has the clearest view of what took place in the car says, hey, we didn't brandish a gun, we didn't point a gun. Number one. Number two, we do know that from ballistics that the gun in the car was never fired, right? Number three, we do know that video was superimposed and looked at for the last 9 months. And in that video, you can see the gun of Jose Garcia. You can see what color it is. You can actually see, you can almost see the trajectory of the bullet as it comes out. That's how much the video has been superimposed. But during that time, you never see anyone in the car of Desmond Franklin doing any movement that suggests, or you don't see any guns being pointed or any, as officers like to use, further movement at all.
What do you make of the statements by the Attorney General's office that Franklin pursued Garcia on the road?
Well, I mean, we all have, we've seen most of the video. I think it's mostly out there in the media. You actually see him turn onto the street and drive by him. You don't even see him pause at all as if he notices he's there. We also know that the next fact is that Desmond Franklin, which has been confirmed as well through this investigation, our investigation, as well as the BCI's investigation, that Desmond Franklin was shot in the right temple, meaning that he was looking forward. Had he been turned to the side or even engaged with the officer, maybe the bullet would have been closer towards his forehead instead of the side of his temple. And you would think that if someone's firing at you, you would think that at least the passenger would have, or someone would have used their gun if there was, used their gun to fire back. But that didn't happen either. So these two didn't know that this officer or what his intentions were when they rode past him. They didn't know he was even there.
Were you or the family made aware of the grand jury's decision prior to Friday's news conference?
We were.
Just a quick follow-up on the city's statement from last week. Them saying that they're, of course, conducting the administrative review investigation and what those disciplinary actions could be. Ed, is there any confidence from you all at this point of something coming from that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we know that the city of Cleveland has truly been the epicenter of lack of accountability. Just the idea of, that there's a consent decree and it still needs to be here means that they have not done a great job of being accountable or making sure that they are holding their officers accountable for excessive force, to say the least. Alex, but to
go ahead.
add to what you asked me, I will tell you this. In the consent decree that the CPD agreed to and it came out, and in their policy, officers are, number one, not to shoot into moving cars, and number two, not to shoot from a moving car. At minimum, this officer violated both of them.
Thank you for the follow-up. Mr. Franklin, as you guys talk about these next steps and, what could come next for you all legally, I mean, are you emotionally prepared for these next steps after everything you guys have gone through so far?
I'm not. The pain just seems to go greater every day as long as Jose Garcia is on the street. My family have been through tremendous pain, and all we asked for was justice. And we feel as though they just spit in our face and let a murderer walk free. So no, I'm not ready, but I know I have to do it for my son, for my family, for his children's. I have to continue to walk that line with my head up.
And to add to that, as you very well know, the history of the Cochran Firm and our founding father, Johnny L. Cochran, we are passionate about our clients. I'm extremely passionate about the Franklin family. The Franklin family has now become my family, and he will not continue to deal with this. When we got into this, he wasn't alone. He and the family will not be alone. He has the partners of this firm throughout the country that are all working together to make sure that we proceed forward in the next steps to get justice for this family.
Stanley, have you guys had the opportunity to talk to either of the two witnesses that were in the vehicles around the site at this point?
We have made contact with one of the witnesses, and we know what that person has said. I mean, it's also out there in social media, on media sites, that one of them called in on the 911 call and talked about this gentleman shooting at two other people and maybe some people on the street, which he was referring to Jose Garcia. The other person, he was not made available to us for obvious reasons, but at this moment we will be talking to him soon.
Do you believe at the end of the day it just came down to who did the grand jury believe more? Was it the passenger in the car, or was it the police officer who fired?
That's an interesting statement. That's something that, all over the country, as attorneys, civil rights attorneys, we look at. And, most of you media folk think that it's the officer and the witness, right? But there's a prosecutor who's there. And the reality is that most people don't understand in a grand jury proceeding that the prosecutor is the only person of true authority and the grand jury foreman that are in that room. And the prosecutor dictates exactly what information the grand jury gets. So it's really the prosecutor and the police officer and the passenger. And so that's why we believe that potentially that something may have went awry in that hearing, because when we think about the facts that took place, we just can't fathom or even possibly understand how Jose Garcia couldn't have been true bill on any of the evidence that was presented forward. A felonious assault, an assault, murder.
How many children did Desmond have?
Desmond, he has 4 children. I'm sorry. And unfortunately, his 4 children will not get to know or be able to have that experience with him as a father. They won't get to be able to share some of the holidays that we often share with our family members. These 4 children along with their mother and this family and this father, have been robbed of the beauty of his life and his continual existence in our community.
Do you believe the whole premise that because of a law change in 2019, there was a higher burden of proof for prosecutors in this situation? Or do you think that was, for lack of a better term, political grandstanding and trying to deflect?
Once again, the way the proceedings work, and I think, you know, one thing that will come out of this and out of the Breonna Taylor situation is that most people don't understand that the grand jury is convened by the prosecutor, right? There's no judge in there to determine fairness or what evidence is credible or not. There's no hearsay rules. The prosecutor presents what he wants to that grand jury. The grand jury may ask questions. The prosecutor has an absolute amount of power in there to determine how he paints the picture. The officer is not with counsel. The officer is not there truly to defend himself. So it is hard for me to believe that that this jury then took it upon themselves to go into a law that passed in 2019 and examine closely how Jose Garcia potentially was using that doctrine of self-defense that allowed for him to not be true-billed.
Bottom line, do you and the family believe that this was an impartial proceeding by the grand jury?
The grand jury proceeding process, as an attorney, I agree that with the process. I don't necessarily agree with those who choose to use the process, the prosecutors within the process. So at this point, we believe that the evidence that was presented to them, there was one, lack of evidence. Two, we believe that there was some evidence that might have been misguided. Is there any questions from anyone else? Seeing that there isn't any more questions, we'd like to thank everyone for coming. We appreciate your time. We will get back to you in the future with more steps as we move forward in justice for Jose Garcia, for Desmond Franklin. Mr. Franklin, is there something you want to add before we?
Yeah, I do want to thank you all for joining us, but I'd like from you guys to hear from his brothers and sisters, you know, where they've been and how they feel about their brother not being here. So I'm gonna let Quavon say a few words real quick before we end the session.
My name is Quavon Franklin. Excuse me, I'm the brother of Desmond Franklin, second youngest. April 9th, it was probably the second worst day of my life. I already lost my mama to incarceration, but that was even more worse for me. But the thing I would like to express is that was kind of my last brother, close brother. I got two more brothers, but it's half of me is gone. It's a whole part of me that's gone, and it's just so sad when we walked inside of the prosecution office and heard it was a no bill. It was devastating to know, as you know, as our attorney said, all the facts and all the evidence that's out there, for him to not get charged or on any of the levels that the prosecutor offered the grand jury for him to get charged. So I just really want to express that devastation. Like it's hard. I'm gone. I haven't been the same. Sleeping is not good. It's bad for me. And I mean, it's hard. It's a lot. I really didn't even want to say nothing. My dad really just gave me the opportunity, but it's hard to really even just discuss it, you know, but I do want to say it's not over until I lay to rest. You know, I'm young, so I still got a lot more living than my dad. So until I lay to rest, you know, so he definitely will have to have the burden of me coming after him legally. You get legally, not nothing out of the ordinary legally until I lay to rest. And that's all I like to say. Thank everybody for coming and watching and, you know, being in tune. Thank you.
I'm Ashley, his little Desmond Franklin's little sister. All I want to say is, it's heartbreaking to know that the officer that did murder my brother is like still scot-free. They just basically said like just forget him even being gone. I'm guessing it is devastating. His kids really need him, and it's sad to say like they're never going to see him again. And one day, probably not today or tomorrow, but one day we would receive justice in the long run. And I do want to thank everybody for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And that's all I really want to say.
All right, everyone, if there's any more questions, if anyone has any questions, I'll take them at this moment. If not, that will end the press conference.
Can we just get Quavon and Ashley to spell their names really quickly?
You got Quavon, Quavon. Franklin, that's my father.
Ashley, Ashlie, Franklin.
Thank you.
Any more questions, anyone? Everyone? Once again, thank you. We appreciate your time.